In this module, you will learn about shares and dividend. Mr. Shah is a successful businessman. He has been in the iron and steel market for the last 30 years. He trades in iron sheets, rods, etc. Now, he wants to set up a steel re-rolling mill. According to his estimates, the total investment needed would be around 5 crore rupees. However, he has only 1 crore rupees. He approaches Mr. Matthew and Mr. Rahim, other businessmen in the same market, with a proposal to invest in the mill. They agree, but they also have only 1 crore rupees each to invest. The investment from all the three put together is still not sufficient to set up the mill. So they decide to approach the public for the remaining funds. The investment required can be raised from the public through shares by establishing a company under the Companies Act of 1956. People who came together to establish a company are known as the promoters of that company. Here Mr. Shah, Mr. Matthew and Mr. Rahim are the promoters of their company. The amount required to establish a company is known as the capital. The capital is divided into small units called shares. As per the Companies Act, a share is the smallest unit of the capital of a company. The total capital raised by a company by issuing shares is its share capital. The share capital is the product of the number of shares issued and the face value of each share. Any person who holds a share of a company is called a shareholder. All shareholders are joint owners of the company. A company issues a certificate called a share certificate to every shareholder, in which the number of shares held and the value received for each share is mentioned. The value of a share printed on the share certificate is known as its face value or nominal value as per value. Generally, the face value of a share is 10 rupees. But some companies may have shares with a different face value. When a company makes a profit, it distributes a part of it to every shareholder, depending on the number of shares held. This earning on a share is known as a dividend. A shareholder cannot claim dividend on his shares. It is at the company's discretion. A shareholder is also eligible to vote in the company's general meetings. The number of votes again depends on the number of shares held. Holding a share in a company is beneficial to the shareholder in many ways. His investment grows with the appreciation of the company's capital. The dividend earned on his shares does not attract tax, and the shareholder is eligible to receive bonus and rights shares. Note that dividend is not taxed because it is paid from the company's profit, which has already been taxed. This is done to avoid double taxation. Shares can be primarily classified as preference shares and equity shares. Equity shares are ordinary shares. Equity shareholders are paid dividend after the preference shareholders have been paid off. There is no fixed rate of dividend. It varies according to the profit earned. When the company winds up its business, equity shareholders are the last to be paid back their capital. On the other hand, preference shares carry a preference or priority or advantage over equity shares. A preference shareholder earns dividend at a fixed rate and is assured of the capital being returned in case the company winds up its business. Preference shares are further classified into 4 kinds, depending on whether dividend will accumulate and whether they are redeemable, participating and convertible. Thus, preference shares can be cumulative or non-cumulative, redeemable or irredeemable, participating or non-participating, and convertible or non-convertible. For cumulative preference shares, if the dividend is not paid for 1 year due to loss or inadequate profit to the company, then it gets carried forward to the next year. The shareholder gets the accumulated dividend in the year that the company makes a profit. Preference shares, for which any unpaid dividend is not accumulated, are known as non-cumulative preference shares. The capital received against redeemable preference shares is paid back to the shareholder after a certain period, agreed upon at the time the shares are issued. Irredeemable preference shares get paid back only in case the company winds up its business. In other words, they are not redeemed as long as the company exists. Participating preference shares earn additional dividend apart from fixed dividend after a dividend has been paid to the equity shareholders. Non-participating preference shares do not earn any additional dividend. Convertible preference shares can be converted into equity shares if the shareholder opts for such conversion. Non-convertible preference shares cannot be converted into equity shares. Just like other commodities are bought and sold in the market, shares can also be bought and sold. The place where buying and selling of shares takes place is known as the share market or stock exchange. Not everyone can trade in a stock exchange. Only persons or firms authorized by the stock exchange are allowed to transact on behalf of the individuals who hold these shares. These persons or firms are known as share brokers. Share brokers charge a fee, usually a percentage of the transaction amount, to both the buyer and the seller for every transaction. The fee is called brokerage. However, in a share market, shares are not bought or sold at their face value. Their value changes every day. The price at which a share is traded in the market on a particular day is called its market price or market value. It must be noted that dividend is always paid on face value, but brokerage is paid on market value. The face value of a share is called its at-par value. If the market value and the face value of a share are equal, then it is called at-par value. If the market value is higher than the face value of a share, then it is called at-premium value. It is the sum of the nominal value and the premium. Premium is the value of a share above its face value. If the market value of a share is lower than its face value, then it is called at discount value. It is also called under par. It is equal to nominal value minus discount. Rate of return is the percentage income earned on the total investment by a shareholder. Once a company receives the entire face value of all its shares, it may convert the fully paid up shares into stocks. Thus, stock is a bunch or aggregate of fully paid up shares. The value of stock may change according to the market trend, regardless of the face value of the shares within the stock. Let's look at the differences between stocks and shares. Shares have a face value, whereas stocks do not have a face value. Stocks must be fully paid up, but shares can be partly paid up also. Stocks can be traded in fractions, whereas shares must be traded in whole. A company can issue shares directly to the public, but cannot issue stocks. Apart from shares, a company may raise funds by borrowing money from the public by issuing debentures. Debentures are certificates issued by a company acknowledging a loan taken for a fixed period at a fixed interest rate. At the end of the fixed period, the company pays the amount borrowed. Like shares, debentures are also traded in the stock market, and their market value also changes frequently. You must have often heard that the Sensex rose or fell today by so many points. What is the Sensex? Sensex stands for Bombay Stock Exchange Sensitive Index. It is a list of 30 most actively traded stocks on the Bombay Stock Exchange. It reflects the average increase or decrease in the market values of these 30 stocks. The Sensex is an investment indicator to the public. Usually when the Sensex rises, it is a good time to sell shares. And when it falls, it indicates a good time to buy shares. However, remember that the decision to buy or sell shares does not depend on the Sensex alone. There has to be a detailed analysis of several factors, like a company's prospects, the overall condition of the economy, the government policies, and so on, before decision can be made. After selling a share, the seller gets an amount equal to the market value minus the brokerage. A buyer buys the share at an amount equal to the market value plus the brokerage. Welcome to the lesson on percentages and discounts. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to calculate ratios and percentages and the percentage increase or decrease of a changed quantity. You will also be able to calculate sales tax and value-added tax and overhead charges and their impact on profit and loss. Good morning, Alice.
Good morning, sir. What topic are we going to study today?
Today, we'll be learning about ratios and percentages. A ratio is an expression that compares quantities relative to each other. Let me help you understand this with the help of an example. What is the strength of your class?
There are 40 students in my class.
And how many of them are girls? And how many boys?
There are 24 girls and 16 boys.
Okay. That means the ratio of the number of girls to the number of boys is 24:16, or 3:2 in the simplest form.
Ratio 3:2. How do we get this, sir?
The comparison between the number of girls and the number of boys can be done by using fractions. That is, 24/16 or 3/2. When we compare two quantities in relation to each other, such a comparison is mathematically expressed as ratio. This means the number of girls are 3/2 the number of boys, or the ratio of the number of girls to the number of boys is 3:2. Similarly, suppose in a garage there are 2 blue cars and 4 white cars. Then the ratio of blue cars to white cars is 2:4, or in the simplest form, 1:2. To make strong concrete, the water to cement ratio should be 1:4. Well, now let's proceed to percentages. Do you know the meaning of percent?
Percent means per 100 or out of 100?
That's correct. Percentage is another way of comparing. It is a ratio that compares to 100. In your class, there are 24 girls and 16 boys. In other words, we can also say there are 60% girls and 40% boys.
And how do we arrive at this conclusion?
Well, the ratio of the number of girls to the total number of students in the class is 24:40. This ratio can be written as a fraction, 24/40. Now, to show it as a percent or per 100, we multiply the numerator and denominator by 100. We then simplify to show a fraction with 100 as the denominator. The fraction 60 by 100 means 60 per 100, or 60%. Similarly, the ratio of boys to the total number of students is 16:40. Converting this ratio into percent, we find that boys form 40% of the class.
Okay, percentage is another way of comparing ratios that compares to 100. So, we have converted a ratio into percent.
Exactly. That is what percent is. A ratio that compares to 100. Alice, do you know percentages are also used to measure a change in quantities?
No. Could you explain this with the help of an example, please?
Why not? Okay, tell me. What was your height last year on your birthday?
I was 150 centimeters tall.
And now, you're 153 centimeters tall.
Yes, sir. I have gained 3 centimeters in the past year.
A change in a quantity can be positive, which means an increase, or it can be negative, which means a decrease. Such a change can be measured by an increased percent or a decreased percent.
You mean an increase or decrease per 100?
That is correct. We can find percentage change by comparing the amount of change in a quantity to the initial amount of the quantity and then multiplying it by 100.
Okay. So with this formula, I can find the percentage increase in my height. Let me see. If I calculate it right, my height increased by 3 centimeters. So, the amount of change is 3 divided by my initial height of 150 centimeters multiplied by 100. Is it 2%?
You've got it right. Using this formula, you can find any of the three variables, that is, the percentage change, the amount of change, or the initial quantity, when any two of these variables are given. Yes, have you ever heard the word discount?
Yeah, my mom prefers buying stuff on discount. She says we can buy stuff at a reduced price at the time of discounts.
Very right. A discount is nothing but a reduction in price. This price reduction is given on marked price of the goods. Discounts are offered by shopkeepers to attract customers to buy goods and thereby increase sales.
Is there some formula to calculate discount?
Yeah. The discount offered on an item can be found by subtracting the sale price from the marked price.
Discounts are usually given in percentages in advertisements and banners.
Once we know the discount, we can find the discount percentage by dividing the discount by the marked price and multiplying by 100.
The formula looks quite similar to the one for percentage change.
Yes, you're right. It is in fact a percentage decrease because the amount of change or discount is in comparison to the initial price or marked price. Just like percentage change, using this formula, you can find any of the three variables, discount percent, discount, or marked price, when the other two variables are given.
That must be the pizza that I had ordered. I'll just go and get it.
How much is it for Alice?
It is for rupees 150. No, wait. It is for rupees 165. Sir, what is this tax in the bill?
It is called sales tax. It is an additional amount we pay when we purchase an item and is included in the bill amount. Sales tax is charged by the government on the selling price of an item and is included in the bill amount. The shopkeeper collects the tax amount included in the bill from the customer and then pays it to the government.
And how is it calculated?
It is a very small percentage of the selling price, Let me explain you with the pizza bill. The sales tax on food items is 10% and it is charged on the selling price. Therefore, it is 10% of rupees 150. That is 10 upon 100 multiplied by 150.
Which is equal to rupees 15?
Right. See, this is the same as the amount shown in the bill. Therefore, the total bill amount is rupees 150 plus 15, which is rupees 165. However, the government has replaced the sales tax on goods by a new tax called value added tax, or simply VAT. Normally, VAT is included in the price of items like groceries.
That's quite interesting, sir.
Lastly, let me tell you about overhead charges and profit and loss. Do you know that profit and loss depends on cost price and selling price?
Yes, if cost price is less than selling price, there is a profit. Profit is calculated by subtracting cost price from selling price. And if cost price is greater than selling price, then there is a loss. Loss is calculated by subtracting selling price from cost price.
That's right. You can also calculate profit percent or loss percent by using these formulae. When a shopkeeper buys goods from a wholesaler or manufacturer, there are certain expenses that he has to pay, like transportation, labor charges, and the rent for his shop. Sometimes, he may need to carry out some repairs to the goods before he sells them. Such additional expenses incurred by the shopkeeper after buying goods are called overhead charges.
That means his actual cost price is more than the cost price.
Yeah. Therefore, he has to add these overhead charges to the cost price.
Then, the new cost price will be cost price of the goods plus overhead charges.
Yes. It is this new cost price that you will use to calculate the profit or loss. You have reached the end of this section. In this lesson, you have learned to calculate ratios and percentages and the increase and decrease percent. You also learned to calculate sales tax and value-added tax and overhead charges and their impact on profit and loss. In this module, you will learn how to calculate VAT. When you go shopping and buy something, the shop will give you a bill. Have you ever seen a bill carefully? The bill will show the actual cost of the purchase and an additional amount called sales tax. For example, in this bill, the cost of pizza is 150 rupees. But the total bill is 165 rupees, where 15 rupees is the sales tax. The government charges sales tax on the selling price of an item, which is included in the bill. The shopkeeper collects the tax amount included in the bill from the customer and then pays it to the government. However, this process is cumbersome and inconvenient. So, the government has decided to impose VAT or value added tax on goods now. VAT is going to replace the existing sales tax regime. It is levied on the value added to a product at each change of hand. That is, from the manufacturer to each reseller. Resellers get a rebate on the tax already paid on the previous transactions. Before you learn as to how VAT is computed, you should know the relevant terms. A dealer is any businessman who buys or sells goods in a state for cash or credit. Turnover is the sum of a dealer's earnings from the sale of goods minus the tax payable on those earnings. A dealer pays VAT on purchase as well as sale. The VAT paid by a dealer on the purchase of goods is called input tax. The VAT collected by a dealer on the sale of goods is called output tax. Output tax is the product of the sales price excluding VAT and the rate of tax applicable. Now, let's learn how to compute VAT. The first step is to calculate the total output tax collected by a dealer on his turnover. There may be different tax rates for different goods. Hence, the output tax is the sum of the tax on his turnover under different tax slabs as shown here. The next step is to adjust the output tax against discounts, sales returns, etc. Output tax is adjusted in various cases, such as when a sales transaction is cancelled, when the goods sold are transformed into complementary goods such as free gifts or samples, when the sale value is reduced due to a discount offer, when goods are returned to the seller, when the whole or a part of the price owned by a buyer is written off as bad debt by the dealer. Next, we have to calculate the total input tax, that is, VAT paid on purchases, in the same manner as done for output tax in the first step. Net VAT is the difference between output tax and input tax. If the output tax is greater than the input tax, then the dealer has to pay the net amount to the government. If the output tax is less than the input tax, then the dealer can claim a refund.